the Good Girl Podcast. I am Cameo King, your host. The Good Girl Podcast, a podcast of women's confessions about our flaws, faith, femininity, and culture. Everything is on the table. We destigmatize the messy process of life. I like to call this podcast oftentimes a healing station, where we talk about some of those deep issues and some of those surface issues, but we really get to the heart of the matter of maybe why we did this or why we believe this, and even beginning to question, why we do some things. And then once we get that realization, that aha moment, that's when we talk about it, right? But it's just a part of life. And I call these conversations confessions. So if you have a confession, as always, head to our website, thegoodgirlpodcast.com, and just click that little confess button, and you can submit your confession, and maybe we'll invite you on. You also can slide in our DMs, but I'm gonna direct you right back to the confession page. I is. But guys, we are less than a week out of one of the most important elections of our time. And by this time next week, we should know, right? We should know with the count. It's a lot of stuff going on with the counting of the ballots, because I think some states have 7 days, some states, and stuff is in litigation, all this other stuff. But I don't know I don't even know if we're gonna be here. Tomorrow isn't promised. But if you haven't already, get out and vote early and as soon as possible. The nonpartisan organization Black Lives Matter Michigan wants to remind you that Black lives are on the ballot this November. And if you haven't already, now is the time to make a plan to vote on or before November 3rd. You can text BLM VOTE to 56525. Again, that's BLM VOTE to 56525. Now on to the podcast. On to the podcast. I think I could have been an MC. If I would have marinated on my craft a little bit, maybe I could have been a MC killer Cam killer. This week's podcast, it is actually a conversation with an elected official, and I had this conversation probably about a year ago. I've just been holding on to it for a while. And I thought it was appropriate to release now when she's listening. She's like, girl, you just not releasing this? To release now because there's so much that is happening with elected officials. And I think we forget a lot of times that they are full humans, that they are people. Yes, some of them may have privilege, but I think about elected officials who are women, who are the minority, who are women, who are Black women, who are women of color, and the additional stress that they take on, the additional just mind-boggling mental Olympics just to exist, and bringing that to the table, and then adding another layer of just existing in the world and existing in a world that consistently tells you that your life doesn't matter. So listen up really quickly to who we're talking to.
I'm Kyra Bolden.
Kyra, an attorney and the state representative for the 35th House District in Michigan.
On my campaign literature, it says Kyra Harris Bolden. Harris is actually my legal middle name. Oh. So, yes. So I see a lot of people hyphenating Harris and Bolden. But my name is Kyra Bolden.
She represents the suburbs that lie just around the city of Detroit, which include Southfield, Lathrop Village, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and Franklin.
A lot of people, when I'm knocking doors, are either my friends that I went to high school with, their parents or their grandparents. And so I absolutely love my district and just wanted to do everything I could to fight for it.
Kyra also represents Southfield Township, she says, one of the richest Republican districts in the state. But her desire for public office didn't begin there.
My want to run for office didn't come from Trump winning the election. I was already thinking about running for office before then. It was really kind of the brain drain that I saw was happening in Michigan, where people that I went to college with, people that I grew up with did not want to be in Michigan.
Kyra hopes to curb the brain drain by pumping resources back into her district and even the state.
I mean, we have some of the best colleges and universities in the United States, but a lot of people flee the state. And why is that? So I wanted to make sure that I was doing my best to create a climate where people wanted to stay in Michigan and not just use Michigan for what it was worth and then take their talent somewhere else. So that was really why I wanted to run for office, because I just love my community. I love Michigan, and I was really sad to see so many of my peers just fleeing to other states.
So yes, it is Rep. Kyra Bolden. And again, just want to remind you guys, I had this conversation almost a year ago, over a year ago, with Kyra. I was sitting in her office and we had this great conversation. She agreed to speak with me and the Good Girl Podcast audience. So listen up to her confession. But before we hop into that, just a quick word from our sponsors. Quality healthcare is coming to a neighborhood near you. Sparrow, the Ingham County Health Department, and Dean Transportation are teaming up to bring their mobile health clinic right to your neighborhood. Throughout the month of October through December, the mobile health clinic is offering free health screenings and services at no charge. Yup, free screenings that cover everything from cholesterol to diabetes to blood pressure. Also immunizations, flu shots, and even referrals to cancer prevention screenings. If there are any questions, shoot a quick email to Sparrow Mobile Health Clinic at sparrow.org. Again, that email address, Sparrow Mobile Health Clinic at sparrow.org. I'll also post all the details and the dates on the Good Girl Podcast website and on social media. Black lives are on the ballot this November. If you haven't already, now is the time to make a plan to vote on or before November 3rd. You can text BLM VOTE to 56525. Again, that's BLM VOTE to 56525. So, Representative Bolden, thank you for inviting me into your space. Your space is beautiful, by the way.
Thank
you have a painting. It's not a painting, but it's some artwork of Shirley Chisholm behind you.
Yeah.
You also have Sonia
Yes.
and Ruth
Yes.
behind you as well. But the thing that I thought was most interesting, because I kept looking at it on your desk, it says the lawyer's prayer. I thought it said the Lord's Prayer. And that's why I kept looking at it.
Lawyer's prayer, yes.
Yes. Can you read that for me?
Yeah, so Lord, grant that I might be able in argument, accurate and sorry, it's a little far away.
Okay.
Accurate in analysis, strict in study, candid with my clients, and honest with my adversaries. Stand beside me in court, so that today I shall not, in order to win a point, lose my soul.
Wow. Lose my soul. I think it's the soul that got me. Because I think, a matter of fact, I know that in all of our work, no matter who we are, we bring our soul to the table. And so that's why I'm so very interested, Representative Bolden, in your confession. Mm-hmm. You have a background of being a lawyer. You are on two very influential committees in your job. So I'm going to turn it over to you. No pressure. No pressure. But what is your confession? Talk about some of this soul work.
Ooh, okay.
Take your time.
So, I like to think that I'm an open book. So I don't really have too many confessions because I try to be honest. And sometimes people look at me a little crazy because I'm a little bit too honest, but I don't really care about how my honesty makes other people feel. It serves me. So with that said, I don't know about confessions. I guess maybe one of my confessions is I don't know everything. And I don't even know if I try to make people think that I do. But I have to put in time to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. And this is not an easy job at all by any stretch of the imagination. I enjoy it, but it's difficult. It's difficult to be available all the time. It's difficult for people to want you to be everywhere at anything, and getting mad at you if you're not there, even if you know, sometimes you need to recharge, you need family time or whatever have you. So maybe my confession is I need to get better at, even in this space, is just saying no. Everybody doesn't deserve my energy or my time, even though I like to, you know, I always love to sit down. I love talking to people, but I think I need to rein that in a little bit.
Was there a moment when you realized that everyone doesn't deserve your energy or your time? Because that's, I don't know if people really understand how difficult that is for you to say in your position.
Yeah.
Because when you say your constituents, that is your boss. Like, you answer to them when you need something, when there's a problem in your district. Like, that is your job. It's like being a doctor and saying, well, I can't do the surgery today.
Right.
I can't see you today.
Right.
That is literally the thread of your job. And so at what point did you realize that you had to start saying no?
That's a good question. I don't know if there was a specific moment, other than I think I had 5 events in one day, and it was like a Saturday or a Sunday, and I was literally kind of just popping in and out of my house, and my husband was just laying on the couch just like, you know, bye, you know. And I think I just realized, like, well, I don't want to work myself to the point where I'm not useful to anybody. And I think maybe I had gotten sick or something. Or maybe, so I think maybe a clear indication when I thought about it was I was sick with the flu. And it was at the point where I was pregnant. And I couldn't go to my former reps, like, swearing in, and I knew that was really, I felt like it was important for me to go because I would be succeeding him, and it was just important to him because he was becoming a senator, and I just could not do it. I just really put my health in jeopardy, and was missing things that I thought were important. And I'm just like, well, maybe if I would have just slowed down a little bit, it wouldn't have hit me so hard. So maybe that was one of the moments where I thought about, like, maybe I should slow down. And I think during the period where I was pregnant, I think I did way too much. And I probably would have not done as much looking back on it, because I did not slow down at all. And, you know, hormones and stuff like that. So I was acting a little crazy. So I really just should have sat down somewhere, and I didn't. So, yeah.
So a lot of questions are going through my mind. But first, so you were pregnant during this time. So you have a child now.
No, I actually had a miscarriage.
Oh.
Yeah.
Girl.
Yeah, I had a miscarriage.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, I probably, you know, I've learned a lot about miscarriages since it's happened. But a contributor can be stress, but in the sense that, you know, they tell you not to announce it because it's very common to have miscarriages before you're at your first trimester too. So, you know, sometimes we don't know what happens. Sometimes it's just abnormalities in the growth, or it can be stress, or it can be, you know, all these different factors. It's just very common. But yeah, I just should have chilled out a little bit more. And I'm not saying that the outcome would have been any different,
right.
But I was just not in my right frame of mind, you know. So I just wish I would have just chilled out a little bit more.
Do a lot of people know that?
No.
Because I have family members and friends, and that is difficult. Let alone being so active and being so present in so many spaces.
Yeah.
And people having these same expectations of you, having the slightest idea.
Yeah, and you know what's weird about it is when I was going through the miscarriage process, which is not how you see in the movies, like it just happens in a day and all. It actually goes on for me, it was probably about 2 weeks. And then you have blood draws after that to make sure that your hormone levels are going down, which is that's probably, I wouldn't say more traumatic, but that's also traumatic. While I was starting my new job, and most people don't know that it happened like right before I started working here. I did a speech on the House floor on Pregnancy Loss Awareness Day, but it was, and I told, my colleagues and whoever was watching that I have miscarriage, but most people don't know the timing of it, because I don't know why I decided not to share that. I think my mom told me not to or something. She's always trying to protect me, but
that's what moms do.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was hard because I'm coming in as a new legislator. I'm getting so many requests to meet me and to be places because, I'm the rep now. All the while I'm experiencing extreme pain. Hormone levels are all over the place. And before I drive up to Lansing, I have to get this blood draw that's reminding me of what just happened. And, but you come up here and you got to, you turn it on and you get home and you sob. And it took me probably close to 6 or 7 months to even be able to talk about it in a way without crying about it. That was probably one of the most difficult times for many reasons, because I was starting a new job and because I was going through just an extreme loss at the time. And then, but it's weird because nobody knows, and then you don't want to go out and tell people. So it's not like if your friend dies or something like that, because you can mourn very publicly. Yeah. This is something that you have to mourn privately, or else you have to tell people, that you're mourning, which is very weird. Yeah. Because I hadn't told anybody because I was only at 7 weeks. So it's a very weird thing to mourn. But your hormones make you mourn, the loss in a way that I had never experienced that type of loss before. And it wasn't just I thought this was going to become a child. It was really deep, as if there was a child there. So yeah, I'm sorry, I even forgot your question.
No, it's okay, because I think so when I hear this, it speaks to the humanity of the people that serve us, and just in the people we interact with on a day-to-day basis. We really don't know what they're bringing to the table. We don't know what they're experiencing. And so in part, to be kind to people, extend them some grace, and allow their humanity to show up. And in addition to that, the complexity of showing up in this world as your full self, because when you bring, Representative Bolden to the table, you also bring Kyra, the, wife, you bring the daughter, you bring the, just the other parts of who you are. Kind of how we started this conversation. You bring your soul to this work. And so I think it is important, and this is why we have these conversations, that we can show up as our full selves, but to bring every part of us to the table looks different. And I'm curious of how that impacted your work. And I don't want to say for the good or for the bad, but I just think the things that we go through at any given time they can shift our perspective. It can make us function differently. So I'm curious. And also, you had to say no to stuff. So how did that, shift Kyra's?
Well, I'm still working on saying no. It has not happened yet. I literally try to go to every single thing that I can go to, especially if it's at my district, and I go to stuff that is outside of my district. So in addition to just my legislative roles and, managing my office. I'm also in leadership. I'm assistant House Democratic leader.
Girl.
So I go to, all the leadership meetings. There's an expectation to give a certain amount of money to the caucus when you're in leadership, which a lot of people don't realize. And I was like, oh, so, okay, all right.
This is why.
I got it. But I'm the vice chair of the Progressive Women's Caucus as well. So a lot of the issues that I have felt, I can actually pour into my caucus. And we do have a task force that's on maternal and infant health, because Black mothers are 3 times as likely to die in childbirth than any other race, and so the work that I've been doing with the PWC has really helped me, and I think it gave me the strength to even do the floor speech about Pregnancy Loss Awareness Day without just completely like melting and dying. So, so I think when that happened, I really just kind of poured myself into work more so than like took a back seat. And I'm not saying like whether that was a good or a bad decision, that's just what happened. And I like my work, so I think naturally I just kind of gravitated to what I like doing and kind of just poured myself into that. So I didn't have to think about it or deal with it in more like concrete ways. So yeah, I think that it affected my work because I think I can be a better vice chair of the Progressive Women's Caucus and really speak to women's issues and understand what that is. And I'm not a mother, but I can say from personal point of view, like I know what a loss feels like. I know what it feels like to try to get pregnant and it doesn't work out, and I know what it might feel like to be terrified because you were trying to be a Black mother, knowing the statistics. And so I just think it brings a different perspective to those issues. So what I think it makes me a better legislator when you have experienced some of these things that you're trying to like legislate.
When you think about someone coming behind you, when you think about other women experiencing whether it's loss or just bringing again their soul to whatever line of work they're in, what would you tell them? Like if you met a you without knowing it was you, what would you tell them? Like you're passing someone on the street.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think because I'm so careful in wanting not to mentor people where I think they should be, but mentor them for where they want to be. And I think that that's a very important distinction for people, because I know many, I don't want to say the elders, but a lot of people say, like, I want to groom you to do X, Y, and Z because that's their vision for a person. I want to groom you to where you feel comfortable, to where you want to go. So when I share my life experience, it's not in a sense of like, this is what you should be doing, but only sharing it to let them know that they are not alone and that it's okay to make mistakes, but learn, work hard, and you have someone that will help guide you through this situation. But I try not to ever say like, oh, you're going to be the next state rep after me. Or maybe I have said that, but I'm joking. Yeah. Because you may be the best lobbyist to come after me. You may be the best policy director to come after me. Running for office definitely is not for everyone. So my main advice to people or a young woman is what is your passion? When you have your passion, usually that's a direct route to your purpose. And how can you make money doing what your purpose is? Because I don't believe in anybody starving out here. So we have to make money. But how do we put those two things together? How do we match your passion with your purpose in order to create the lifestyle that you see for yourself? Is the main thing that I try to do when I try to, pour into somebody else.
Well, Kyra, Representative Bolden, I thank you so much for sharing on Good Girl Radio. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.